Today's exercise is about becoming more familiar with the handling of enemy air defenses. After recently explaining what radar-guided missiles are all about and how to evade their fire, today's exercise is about neutralizing various air defense units. There are 4 different enemy types on the tray. From left to right and front to back, these are the following air defense systems. A Sentry SPAAG, with an effective range of 4 kilometers. It fires many small projectiles that detonate after a certain time. It is also well suited to fending off incoming rocket fire. Not to be underestimated, it can really hurt. In the center is a Bolt Strike, with an effective attack range of 15 kilometers. The Bolt Strike fires radar-guided missiles. In this mission, the best way to avoid its fire is to fly low. On the far right is a Linebreaker SAM. The infrared-guided missiles that a SAM shoots have a range of 5 kilometers. Although they can fire 12 missiles in fairly rapid succession, they are easy to defend against with flares as long as you have them. Like radar-guided missiles, Fox 2, i.e. infrared-guided missiles, always need a line of sight to the target. And since they adjust their trajectory to hit the target at its future position, they can also be deflected into the ground with steep flight maneuvers. There are 2 anvils in the back row. Similar to the Sentry SPAAG, they fire projectiles that detonate after a time. However, there are not as many of them, but the individual shots are more powerful. In most exercises, however, the anvils appear rather impassive. It is not yet clear when they will become active. A radar truck was embedded in the formation to provide the enemy with possible reconnaissance of the situation. Your task now is to neutralize the enemy position with an aircraft of your choice. The Cricket is an inexpensive aircraft that has enough firepower to do justice to the task at hand. In my experience, linchpins are best suited to combat enemy air defenses. They may be the least effective missiles, but their mass makes them strong. It is important to remember that the enemy will try to stay alive. For this reason, air defense positions tend to shoot down incoming threats. SAM positions can intercept incoming missiles because the incoming missiles have a heat signature. Bombs are a different story, but more on that later. Bolt Strike and Sentry SPAAG will also try to shoot down incoming missiles. Possibly anvils should do the same, but there was no sighting of this behavior. It is not so easy to prevent the enemy from opening fire on approaching threats. A single Cricket, in particular, cannot do much. It is therefore necessary to overwhelm the defense with mass, because not all incoming missiles can be fought at the same time. This is due to reload times and the time a unit needs to align its weapon system. Good team play, for example, can result in an air defense position being attacked simultaneously by different players from different directions. This drastically maximizes the chances of success. On this approach, I try to fly as close to the ground as possible so that the Bolt Strike can't catch me. Sentry SPAAG and SAM position are both within range of the linchpins, which is 5 kilometers. So I just have to keep my head down until I'm in range for my missiles. Then quickly gain a little altitude to get a favorable launch angle and hope that the targets are hit. Incoming infrared missiles from the SAM position can be fended off with flares. With a bit of luck, the Bolt Strike will be overwhelmed by the defense against incoming missiles and won't be able to open fire on me. After the approach with the Cricket turned out to be quite simple, I wanted to try to get the compass bombs to the target. I'm not an experienced pilot, but it's definitely worth a try. The idea is to fly low again, get as close as possible to the targets, and use the momentum built up to hurl the bombs into the target. With nuclear option, the movements of objects are based on physical laws. This means that drop bombs have the same speed as the aircraft that drop them when they are released. They therefore do not fall directly to the ground in a straight line, but in an arc. If the nose of the aircraft pulls upwards before releasing, the bombs can be hurled at the targets in an arc. So much for the theory. Unfortunately, I didn't know at what speed or at what altitude the bombs had to be released for such a maneuver. To be honest, it must have been a very botched attempt. I'm sure an experienced jet pilot could do it. I'll have to keep practicing. I was completely sawn in half and didn't do any damage to the enemy. With the Chicane, my official love, it was easy for me to take out the targets. The helicopter allows me to stay only a few meters away from the ground at all times. Sometimes low hills are enough to break the line of sight of the radar systems and prevent the enemy from taking a shot. With the 42 linchpins alone, the Chicane has more than enough firepower to neutralize the defensive position. If the SAM position desperately tries to launch a missile at me after all, I can counter this with flares as usual. Flares work best when the incoming missile has no direct line of sight to the heat source, in this case my engine. So if the rocket comes from the front, it's less of a problem than if it comes from behind. Reducing the thrust is also helpful. This reduces the waste heat from the engine and thus the heat signature. Not only the Cricket and the Chicane can fire linchpins at ground targets, the good compass is also perfectly capable of doing so. After the attempt with the bombs failed miserably, I wanted to give the small rockets a chance. And lo and behold, you can also get them on target with the compass. Last but not least, I wanted to try it with a large airplane. And of course the Darkreach is the best choice. It's actually a bomber, but since I didn't succeed in dropping bombs, I equipped it with missiles. In a real game, this setup would be hugely oversized for the targets I was aiming for, but it was worth it for the fun of it. I also wanted to see how well the Darkreach could maneuver close to the ground during such an approach. It turns out that it seems to be maneuverable enough to fly low enough. With the large amount of missiles carried and their long range, it's easy to neutralize the enemy's defensive position.